NightHawk is a designer and manufacturer of the innovative, patent-pending safety and fitness product, Night Runner 270 shoe lights that have been featured on ABC's Shark Tank, Good Morning America, and has been sold in over 40 countries around the world. Prior to founding NightHawk, Doug spent over 30 years successfully driving business development and sales for a multi-billion dollar, Fortune 500 companies. Doug led the national sales team for the Home Depot supply and was instrumental in developing new market strategies. From 1997 to 2007, he was Winter Park's very own vice mayor and city commissioner. Doug placed second in the 2015 Rollins Venture Plan competition. He is also a Fire Spring Fund graduate and a Rollins alumnus. Tonight, he will be interviewed by Dr. Pete McLinden, entrepreneur in residence at Rollins College Kramer Graduate School of Business. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Doug Storer.
Doug, welcome. I see you brought your fan club with you. That's great.
That's going to be hard to live up to, by the way. I know all of you here are here to see Pete, but
I don't think so. Not tonight. Not tonight. Doug, welcome. It's great to have you here. It's been a while since we caught up, so let's just get right into it.
Sure.
You always planned to be an entrepreneur, right?
Not at all. Not at all. I think entrepreneur is one of those things that you fall into when you don't really have a clear idea of what you want to do.
So how did it happen for you?
What's that?
How did becoming an entrepreneur happen for you?
Completely by accident, which is how the whole product was founded. I had an accident one morning when I was training for a marathon, and that led to the whole idea behind Night Runner.
And so you were out running late one night and you tripped over something and hurt yourself and said, I should probably have a light of some kind.
Well, running's always been a passion, and I was training for my 5th marathon and got myself injured, and I had a lot of time to think about how I could keep that from happening. I knew that there was a need out there. I came home, my co-founder and wife, Renata, is here in the front row. I said, honey, I need headlights for my sneakers, and we kind of laughed about that. And then we started thinking about what might that look like? How would we do? Let's go buy one. And we couldn't find one to buy, so we started thinking about how we would make one. And so that's really how it started, and that was 2013.
All right, so from the idea in 2013, how did you come up with the product that's in the market today? And for those of you that have not seen it, here's what the Night Runner shoe lights look like. They're very bright. They have many different modes, and they actually stay on your shoes when you run. So please walk us through that.
Well, the first thing was we had to convert our entire house into a laboratory. So we spent a lot of time experimenting on gee, what's the real problem here and how do we solve that? We actually duct taped little flashlights to our shoes, went out walking and running at night, said, okay, the concept of light down low works a lot better than having it by your eyes, right? Your eyes dilate when when light is close to it. So then we said, well, you can't just run around with a flashlight on your shoe. It's got to be smaller. It's got to be stable. So then the big problem became, how do you design the clip system that clips onto your shoes, minimizes the motion that is inherent in walking or running, and how do you get enough light and enough battery life? So the mantra became lighter, brighter, longer. And we worked through several prototypes. I called them prototypes. I mean, they're laughable now. In fact, when we were here 2 years ago, we had our very first prototype. It was not even a very good functioning prototype. It was V1 of V4. But we had something here to show people and to tell the story. But it took a while to get to that point through models that we made, through various Frankenstein kind of things that we took to show people, to show that it would work. And then when we got a little bit of funding, and this competition helped us a great deal in getting a little bit of money to go forward with actually hiring designers and engineers that knew what they were doing. We knew exactly what we wanted, but we needed to have it engineered and meet our specifications.
Very good. Tell us a little bit about the aha moments as an entrepreneur. When did you first realize that this is something that was viable, something that somebody else wanted, would pay you for it, and so on?
Yeah, I guess there might have been several aha moments. Certainly when the idea came to me, that might have been the first one. And every time we would take this idea to somebody, we would say, you know, we'll keep going until someone tells us it's a bad idea, you know. And we kept getting encouraged, you know. And one of those first meetings I had as I took my embarrassing little prototype that I'd fashioned out of in our kitchen to John and Betsy Hughes at the Track Shack. And I said, you know, here's my idea. You know, I got this thing right here, and I showed it to him. I waved my arms a little bit, and, you know, had a little bit more of a few pictures. But he says, you know what? That's a good idea. He says, I could sell those all day long. And, well, that's all it took. So at that point, we were off and running. So then it became a matter of making the design parameters work. So I'll tell you one of the aha moments. If you hold up the product a minute, we had initially talked about you know, just both light units looking the same way. They were both exactly the same units. And I was walking around the house one day and with no shoes on, and I got to looking at my feet, and I'm like, you know, your feet aren't the same. They're left and they're right, and they're, you know, the toes are big in the middle and there's little ones on the end. I mean, it's they do different things. Why would you put lights on your feet that were both the same? And so that's where this idea came of this wing design, because it really mirrored the shape of your foot. And then we started looking at this wing design, and we said, what are we going to do with the tip of the wing? And that's where this back-facing red light came. So it really went from just seeing forward to being able to see both peripheral light to the side and a red-facing backlight, which really was the key to making the safety of the product go exponentially up.
So you're at the Track Shack. You have some market acceptance at some level. You have a prototype that's now symmetrical and kind of matches one's feet. What steps did you take next to finally make it a product?
Well, I tell you, that's where Rollins came in on board, and the entrepreneur system that we have here in Orlando, none of which I knew about, by the way. I mean, we were, my wife and I were both professionals. We were working full-time jobs. We were in corporate America, nothing related to shoe lights. But few people were related to shoe lights, right? So we started asking questions because we found that, and I've since learned that there's really three things to any entrepreneur. It's urgency, it is getting the information that you need when you need it, and it's resources. And that really is the three things. And so we realized that we had to find out information very quickly to get to the next step. And we searched everywhere we could to find that. Rollins was a great resource. Dr. Bill Grimm, hey, howdy, Bill, had a community class that fortunately worked into my work schedule, so I could go visit with other entrepreneurs and listen to, you know, someone who actually knew what they were doing, talk about some of these things. And then there's other pitch events like this pitch event where you get to talk to other people, other entrepreneurs, other investors, and people, little by little, we gathered pieces of information. The important part of that was, you know, with all deference to Bill, I didn't need to know how to seed my board at that point. You know, I needed to know that next step, that next minor little step. And so that's when you need the information, you need it quickly. And so we were out there finding that. Fortunately, it was available, and we're still looking for the next step of information.
Okay. Very good. So the ecosystem, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad you got plugged into it at the time that you did. In terms of building the product and taking it to manufacturing, walk us through a little bit about through that process.
Yeah, it was, you know, it's never a straight line. In fact, our first, I love going back and looking at kind of our old plans and old pitches. From concept to manufacturing, I think we initially looked at about 6 months. We were going to knock this thing out, right? Then we realized the hurdles that were involved in actually building something physical. You know, building a product is much different than a piece of software. You've got more challenges. You have to actually go tool it and build it and then sell it. And so we had those challenges, but I talked a little bit about the performance specifications, and that's the one thing that both my wife Renata and I were very particular on. We knew the specifications that we needed. We started working with our first initial engineer. It looked beautiful. It was an absolute work of art. It didn't work more than 20 minutes. It just, the battery life was not there. The lumens were not there. It looked good, but it didn't function. So, but that got us to the next step, right? So that got us to an investor to say, look, we made something. It works, right? It's going to work better. So we actually went through two other iterations of engineers before we actually got the design parameters right to where it was a functioning product, to where we've been able to sell 30,000 of these in 18 months. That took about a little over 2 years to get to that point.
All right, excellent. So 30,000 in 2 years. Congratulations, that's great. You had some opportunities there on TV with some particular shows we'll talk about in a second, but talk to us about how a product then became something you could sell to the world, not just locally, but elsewhere.
Yeah, and I have to, that was a little bit of a surprise to us, because we were initially, we thought this was great. We were going to make something that the world needed. Hadn't given a lot of thought to, how we were going to sell this, the business behind it. That was a whole other awakening. But what we did do is about 2 years ago, in fact, right before we were competing in the venture plan competition, we went on Kickstarter with our first product. And I'll tell you about this in just a minute. The reason that we did that was we wanted to gain more customers. We wanted to prove the concept. Of course, we needed the money, but it was more important to see if somebody would buy this. And so we had prototype sexy pictures. We had done a video that very clearly explained how the product worked. Went a long way into really capturing someone's imagination about the product, and did some good branding, and then went to Kickstarter. And in 30 days, we were able to not only raise $43,000, but we got 762 customers before we made anything. So to us, that was just validation, first of all. We also realized that they weren't just from the United States. They were from 25 other countries. That was an eye-opener. I guess it gets dark everywhere, right? So we should have figured that out. Come full circle to 2 years from now, we have one product. We have one product, Night Runner 270, which is on the market now. This year we have two products, Night Runner Pro and Night Shift Pro, that will be coming out by the end of the year. We're actually in a Kickstarter campaign right now. I want all of you to go look at Kickstarter for Night Runner Pro, and you can see all about the new product. But that goes until April 21st. And then in 2018, we have another product called the Safe Shift, which will be a safety software that enhances worker safety by alerting them to biohazard conditions, all types of safety conditions they may encounter in the workplace or industrial markets.
Yeah, very good. You forgot to ask for the order. So go to Kickstarter.com, take a look at the new products, and buy one. And then get back to Doug with your feedback.
No, thank you.
So a lot of folks are interested in the Kickstarter campaign, the mechanics of it, maintaining it, being successful with it, because you start a campaign, you did not have 760 some folks that were willing and able to buy. Walk us through from kind of beginning to end what the experiences was like, and would you do it again?
Well, and we did in fact do it again, so yes, the answer is yes. But it was like anything, you have to be able to clearly articulate your product, your business plan, and before people actually lay money down for something, these are not things they can take home right away or get in 2 weeks. They wait 6 months for these things. So to do that, you have to articulate that yes, you can deliver, and that you have a plan plan to deliver this product, and they can believe in that. And they also have to be intrigued by the product. And I wish I could say, Renata and I were, so smart to do all this, but people like the product. So, I mean, that's it. You have to have a product that people like and need. And Kickstarter gave us that push. It also gave us visibility. I tell people, and you're getting old when you're telling your story over and over again, but you got to get off the couch. You got to get out there and do something. And Kickstarter gave us another platform to tell the story, to show people. And interesting thing happened, as one of those 762 customers happened to be best friends with the producer of the CBS show Innovation Nation. And out of the blue, we get this call from this show, and they want to do an interview and feature the product. And so after we launched, we were on CBS with Mo Rocca on Innovation Nation, which is a great show, Emmy Award winning. And all of a sudden, we had all these other people who knew about Night Runner, and sales just spiked along with our launch sales. So we were very fortunate.
And actually, Mo actually did a follow-up for you too, not too many weeks ago.
He did, yes, yeah. We actually got to go out to Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show and meet with all the Innovation Nation people, and they were it's almost like we're in a family. So it was very nice.
Yeah, and actually, not that you would do it again. Clearly, you would. But doing that first Kickstarter campaign, what would you have done differently? Was it worth your time? Was the timing right for the organization? Clearly it was, but what things would you have changed now with 2020 hindsight?
Yeah, we're correcting the things that we would have changed in this campaign, actually. But the timing was good. But I think the key message is overcoming the fear of failure, because when you do something like this with something new, you're out there. I mean, it could have come back as, you didn't reach your funding goal. People said, I don't want this. I don't need this. So we were prepared that, gosh, people might not like it, But these are not passive things. Along with anything, you have to work it. I mean, we spent money on a professional video. We had a public relations firm that was reaching out to publications. Renata was featured in Runner's World during that campaign called the Mothering a New Invention. And so, I mean, you had to do well-placed PR and push it, and little by little it grew and grew. And the grassroots of the running community have been great, because they'll talk to each other. And once you see these out on the road, if you've ever seen them out on the road, you say, gosh, what is that? I want that. So a lot of our businesses come from that.
Yes, so sort of word of mouth, and certainly highly visible kind of thing at night.
Yeah, we call it word of feet.
Word of feet. Okay, I like it better. So, all of this kind of brought you to a point where you were on Shark Tank. Tell us a little bit about how that happened, what that experience was like.
So Shark Tank. So we had just launched the product in October of 2016. 15, excuse me. And we'd been on Innovation Nation. We'd done some trade shows. We were starting to gain a lot of traction. And then something a little strange happened. It started to get light outside and longer days and not enough dark. So sales slowed a little bit, and a little bit of anticipation. So we what are we going to do next, So we kind of scratched our heads. And I had read about an open audition in Miami for Shark Tank. And our conversations over in the kitchen always start like this. Is this a little crazy? What do you think? And we started batting it about. We said, what do we got to lose? Let's give it a try, And so we drove down to Miami at 3 in the morning. It's like one of those open casting calls you see on American Idol, where they're all around the block, there's lines of people. So here we were with all these crazy people in line. And it literally took maybe 6 or 7 hours getting all the way through this process. But we met with these evaluators, and it seemed to be pretty well received. We later found out the numbers on the Shark Tank. So in each season, 50,000 companies apply to Shark Tank. it takes about 8 weeks to go through the process, which involves paperwork, due diligence, videos that you have to submit so they know that you can walk and talk and, not wither on a camera. And they tell you that they're going to, 200 companies out of that 50,000 get flown to LA to film. But even then, they say, just because you got this far doesn't mean you're going to be on Shark Tank, right? So, actually, 161 companies out of the 50,000 make it on the show, and if you've ever watched the show, about half of them get deals. So we were very, very fortunate to be, in that half that got a deal.
Yeah. So you took the money and you grew the company. Tell us what happened.
Sure. So the good news is that when we applied for Shark Tank, and by the time that we were on it, we had overcome a few hurdles. Right? We got those initial customers. We had a working prototype. We started to gain some traction with even more customers. We started to get that thing called revenue, which was that's always fun. So those are all the kind of things they like in the Shark Tank. So and we had a patent protection, or we have a patent pending, so that was something that they always ask about. So we said, we've checked a few boxes, maybe it's time. So we were at a level of maturity that we thought that it might be appropriate. So when we went on the show, we had done a lot of background work, and I'll tell you that we drilled questions about our company. We developed a 64-page or 64 questions about our company, all of our business metrics, and we drilled them over and over and over again. So there was nothing those sharks could have asked us about our own company that we didn't know. And if you watch the show, that's where a lot of the trouble starts, is when you don't know your numbers, when you hesitate on something. So we were well prepared for that. When we got into the tank, we were fortunate that at least one of the, and we find out several, were runners and were interested in the product. And so it started off with Robert Hershevik, who we knew was a runner, and actually we had targeted, showed some interest in the product. But he came in at a very crazy high valuation. I think he wanted 30 a low valuation. He wanted 30% of the company for what we were asking, and so we fortunately somebody else jumped in and started talking about it. The very flattering thing to us was that we actually got over 8 offers from 4 of the sharks, and they all liked it for different reasons. Mark Cuban was very interested in the Bluetooth connected version, which this new unit we're doing on Kickstarter is Bluetooth connected. Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, loved the industrial safety product that we were developing. I mean, he saw the numbers. I was impressed with that because that was validation to us that market was there because of his interest. Lori Greiner loved the marketability, the packaging, how it looked, said the product was a winner, and she's like the queen of retail. And of course, Robert Hershevik was a runner, and we knew that he would like. We thought he might like it. So the nice thing about it is we started a bidding war. So we actually were fortunate enough to kind of step back a little bit and let these guys kind of fight it out. So that was a little amusing to us, and we were actually a little taken aback by that. But it ended up that 4 of them were interested and wanted it. And we ended up taking an offer from Robert Hershevik, $250,000 for 15% with a $100,000 loan. And that's exactly what we wanted when we walked in, and exactly the shark we wanted to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the money in the bank?
The money is not in the bank. So
tell us what happened.
Yeah, so kind of the behind the scenes of Shark Tank. So the show filmed June 28th. We were on October 7th, so a lot of time had passed. During that time, what they do after you make a handshake deal in the Shark Tank is they go through their due diligence. You start to talk with their team, and there's a lot of exchange of information. So we actually fielded 2 additional offers offers from Robert after the Shark Tank, both of which were lower than what was in the Shark Tank. But what had happened in the meantime is we aired. From the time that we aired in that month, we did 10 times our annual revenue in that 130-day period.
Congratulations.
So we're sitting here going, I don't know that we need to take a haircut here, plus why would we give away equity when we've got the revenue we need now, and we earned it through the marketplace. And so we held tight to our deal that we made in the Shark Tank, and we ended up parting ways on that. But there's two parts to the Shark Tank. There's the incredible exposure that you get from Shark Tank, and then there's also what the shark can do to help you. And I have to recognize Daryl Lynn's in the audience. She is a Shark Tank alumni and a Rollins alumni, so way to go.
Yeah. Very good. So as far as the experience, because obviously the show is edited heavily, when you fly out to LA and you're behind the scenes, do you get to meet the sharks beforehand? Do they put you in a green room? Do you rehearse, practice? Do you get to do any of that? Or do they just throw you into the tank and put the bright lights on you to see how well you can swim?
Well, they have some of it I can talk about. Some of it I had to sign papers that we could never talk about. But the long and the short of it is that they prepare you very, very well. The sharks know nothing about you when you walk in the door. So they haven't seen you. They don't know anything about your product. The TV show vets you and takes you through this long selection process. But when you walk in, you have to, in 2 minutes, capture their attention. If they don't like you, you're out of there in 15 minutes. If they like you, they'll keep you in there for over an hour. And just hammer you with questions. And so we were in there for over an hour. So that was quite an experience in itself.
I see. So you had the halo effect occurred, right? Probably with Mo Rocca and Shark Tank, and there was another one, Good Morning America?
Good Morning America,
Talk to us a little bit about that one.
So after Shark Tank, there was that sitting around the kitchen counter kind of thing going, what are we going to do now, And we had talked with some fellow entrepreneurs that had consumer products that had been involved with Good Morning America, Deals and Steals. I don't know if you've ever seen that segment. So we said, why not? We know the contact name. I'll shoot them an email. We'll see if if there's any interest there. So that morning I shot them an email. We heard from them that afternoon. And strangely enough, they were putting together a segment on just Shark Tank products. And they go, you'd be perfect. Can you have 10,000 units in 3 weeks? And of course, what's the answer to that? Sure.
Of course, we have about 10 in inventory right now. Yes.
So we aired in Good Morning America in February. In 1 day, we sold just about 9,000 units. So it was a good month.
So let's see, Shark Tank. Well, Mo Rocca, Shark Tank, Good Morning America, Oprah.
Don't laugh.
I know that's probably next, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. So I wish I could say we were so smart and planned all these things to happen, but the good news is we have a product that shows well. It's very demonstrable, and especially when the lights are on, and so it films well. So this has been proven out with a couple of shows, and so we're going to try to find those opportunities. For any type of exposure like that, I mean, Shark Tank I think has 8 million viewers. Any type of exposure like that for a consumer product, it's gold. I mean, we don't have a budget like that for mass marketing, top of the funnel brand recognition like that. So how else are you going to get it? You have to scrap and claw and find these types of opportunities. And there's some more of them out there, and you bet we're going after them.
Yeah, so it's exciting to me that you have these opportunities, that you have word afoot out there. You have something that at night people can see very readily. Where do you take it from here?
Well, you know, it's interesting because, and again, tying it back, I'm having a lot of memories of our preparing for the first Rollins Venture Plan competition. And as we were going through kind of the first part of the process, they said, this is a great looking product. You got a pretty neat business plan, but you only have one product. You can't have a company with one product. You're not a business, you're a product. And so we took that to heart and we started challenging ourselves, well, what else could we do with this? And that's when we started working on the next models. When we got accepted into the Fire Spring Fund Accelerator, very hard to say, and that was, we just graduated from that in February, and the fortunate part of that is they challenged us on the technology side of things to push our products, and so we were able to really push our whole line to figure out who we were, and it turns out we weren't a shoe light company at all. We were an innovative safety company. And so that allowed us to go into the software side of things and look at the Bluetooth connected model for our next products. Now we have 4 products, and we're looking at other types of avenues to expand in that. So
yeah, very good. Talk to us about how you leverage the ecosystem now for all of the budding entrepreneurs that we have here tonight. What things, because I like what you said about just give me the next step. Don't paint the full vision because I can't even wrap my head around that. Talk to us about the steps that you had taken, why they were meaningful, and what they were.
Yeah, well, it really comes about, and you know, one could say I was fortunate, others could say I just was out there hustling, but you know, you have to look at your network and your people that you know and talk to them and tell them about what you're doing. They know people. You really have to navigate your network. And when I went on this accelerated journey to get knowledge, I knew the time clock was ticking before this died. You know, I was on a mission to get the information that I needed. Well, everybody that I met that was in this area said, well, oh, you need to talk to this person. This person knows this. And I'd have coffee with them, and that person would know 2 other people, and you'd keep navigating through this network. And so the nice thing about the ecosystem, and it's gotten much better, believe me, in 2013, there weren't a lot of opportunities. You know, I mentioned Dr. Grimm's class, which was great for working people. Again, we were doing full-time jobs while we were developing this product. But things like Starter Studio, we couldn't apply to because we had full-time jobs. So there were after-hour things that we would go to, the lunchtime events, things like that. Anytime they would have a founders talk. Anytime that we could hear somebody talk about their journey, we would go listen to, and we would learn things from. Nobody's journey is the same. My journey is much different than anybody else is going to be. But you would learn little bits and pieces, and we started figuring things out. And the nice thing about getting in these networks like Starter Studio and Rollins and Fire Spring Fund is you start to develop mentors, both formal and informal. I would classify you as a mentor. I've had many coffees with Pete. And if you can accelerate getting to the right person by even a day, that could be critical to your survival. And so that's exactly what we did. We were able to get to people that, you know, can help and were more than willing to help. And by the way, once you've gone through this journey, you would I would drop anything to help someone right now, just because I got that help when we were going through it. So,
very good. Very well said. We have just a few more minutes, and I want to bring Renata into this mix. How important has the relationship been in building a business and everything that you've been through? Talk to me about the dynamics.
Oh, well...
Renata, please, come on up.
Thank you for dragging me into this, by the way. So we came up with the idea before we got married. We were already planning a marriage, but it hadn't happened yet. So the idea came, and we became all consumed, as Doug had already explained. So we got married, and our honeymoon was actually at a independent running retailer trade show. So... We enjoyed it, but yeah, that's true commitment. And that was our last vacation until just a few weeks ago when we had a chance to go skiing finally. So, but the teamwork, we work well together. We complement each other very well. We bounce ideas off of each other, and we're always there. So it's not, we don't come from different offices or different places. So it's very, very collaborative what we do, and it's actually made our relationship stronger, I think.
It's also taken over half of our house too, so and I'll tell you, if you don't have a partner that is on board, that could have killed the idea right in the beginning. Whether it's your spouse, whether it's the people around you, if a negative word or conversation could have killed the whole idea. Renata was on board from the beginning, and her imagination was, both of our imaginations were sparked, and obsessed is the only word that I can come up with when we started off on this. So.
Thank you, Doug.
Please stay up here for just 1 second. We're wrapping it up. So the company as it stands today, both of you are full-time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
No, we have a lot of outsourcing, and we have purposely kept it very lean, but we have customer service outsourced, we have our manufacturing and logistics outsourced, our public relations and marketing. So we're this year we will bring on a chief of marketing and a vice president of sales. That'll be our next 2 hires.
Oh, very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, one last plug, Kickstarter campaign.
Ends April 21st, so
ends
take
April
a look
21st. And please help me thank Doug and Renata for being here with us tonight.